It says live on Facebook. Facebook says Fade to Gray is live. All right. Hi. Welcome back to Four in Tow Podcast, where moms can find encouragement on their journey through homeschooling. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and this is my first live episode. So welcome. This feels weird to be talking to myself, but knowing that people are watching. Typically, I'm in my closet and I'm trying to keep my kids out of my closet while I am talking about homeschooling. So thank you guys for hopefully joining me here today. I am excited to be talking with you about homeschooling. So I know it's not a cool topic, and but it is a buzzword topic right now. And with this pandemic, it's been interesting to watch all of the parents who have had to all of a sudden become parents who school at home. I had an email from an old friend earlier this week who has her kids in public school and is now forced to homeschool them forced to school them at home. And she made a really good point, which I've actually thought about, but I really appreciated her saying so, was that she is careful to say that right now she is schooling at home. She is not homeschooling, because there is a difference. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, but I also wanted to mention I am in a bunch of homeschool groups on Facebook where moms or dads even are like, we decided through this pandemic that we want to homeschool our kids, but we have no idea where to start. How do we do this? And so I have the same answers every time. And I also have, that wasn't distracting. I have not posted to any of those right this second. Okay. But I also, so I have all of these, I lost my train of thought. You guys are going to have to give me a minute. So I have all of these ideas of how I would start homeschooling and ways I like to encourage people to do that. And then I also have seen fellow homeschool moms who are veterans like myself who go and have the exact same advice. So I feel as if it's something somewhat universal. So your overwhelmed feeling that you guys have is so normal. First of all, don't feel like you are odd for having these feelings. The idea of being responsible for the education of your children when that's something that you didn't originally think you were going to do can just really be give you that sinking feeling like I am inadequate. And as moms, especially, I think we already struggle with that sense of inadequacy. And adding your children, like you already feel inadequate in that you're not feeding your children the right food because it's not healthy. You're not getting them enough exercise. You give them too much screen time. You're not teaching them how to read well enough. And then all of a sudden now you have all the other on top of it of, are they going to be able to be smart enough? Am I going to be able to teach them well enough? Are there going to be gaps in their education? What about socialization? And so all of these things, it just really can make a parent feel incredibly overwhelmed. And I'm here to tell you, you guys, public schools are relatively new in the grand scheme of the world. Homeschooling has been it forever. Parents have been who teaches their children. And the it takes a village to raise a child is us. I have not, and I'm live on Facebook, so why don't you scooch that way? Oh my gosh. All right, before I'm interrupted again, let me see here. Do we have anyone watching with us today in this early morning homeschool
Currently
chat?
have 5 people watching.
Awesome. All right. I have my friend Chris here with us as well. He's going to be helping me field questions. Not the questions that keep coming in my door, but questions that are online.
Isn't that the life of a homeschooler, though?
Oh my gosh. This is so accurate. Let's see here. I'm going to see if I can post this here. It's on my timeline now. There we go. And honestly, I will be sharing this to all the other places later. I can't really think straight enough to do that because I have 30 minutes, which is now down to 20 minutes, and I have a lot to say. So is that okay, Chris?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right, guys. So I'm just going to give you my layout of how I approach the question. So I want to homeschool. Now what? I have some areas that the very first place that I always encourage people to start is actually with the law. So every single state of the United States has different laws put in place or guidelines put in place for families who want to homeschool. And so for me to tell you what the laws that I am accountable to are, is actually quite useless unless you live in the same state that I live in. I have talked with enough homeschoolers at this point that I know about some of the laws in some of the states, but I do not know all the nuances of all of them, and they are all very different. Now, I will tell you, I have been told, and at this point I have observed, that of all the states, Pennsylvania has some of the, some people call the most strict. In my opinion, Pennsylvania has some of the most clearly defined guidelines and expectations of our government towards homeschool families, what they want to see from us. It can come across as quite strict and quite overwhelming, especially. So if you're a new homeschooler in Pennsylvania, reach out to me. I can help you. I have done this before. At this point, I've done all the requirements except for high school requirements that have, because there are some additions as you get older. The child has a few things that are added to some grades. Some grades have requirements that other grades do not. So there's that too. Don't get overwhelmed. Many of us have done this. And I was a homeschool child of the 90s and 80s who was around when those laws were being put into place. My mom was on the front lines of helping the people who were creating the laws. She was helping to tell her representative, add that, don't add that. Yes, I remember her sitting on the phone waiting to talk to her representative as things were being put into place. So the best place to find the laws for your state about homeschooling is from a legal company called Homeschool Legal Defense. Homeschool Legal Defense. They are your best friends. hslda.org. Chris, you can throw that into the comments because that one, hslda.org, especially right now with, in case you have been looking into homeschooling and you have been reading the news, light bulb just went out. There have been some pretty raunchy attacks against homeschooling from Harvard. But HSLDA and many others have been writing rebuttals to show, basically Harvard saying homeschooling is evil and destructive. There's one Harvard professor saying homeschooling will destroy your children. It's the worst thing ever. Why is this even a thing? It needs to be illegal. Homeschool Legal Defense has come back with their rebuttals, and I've seen at least 3 articles from HSLDA affiliates saying, why is she even saying this? It makes absolutely no sense. There's more evidence to show that homeschooling is better for your child. Now, okay, that's the first thing. Next, I'm not saying that everybody should homeschool. Please, please hear me. I am not saying that everybody should homeschool. It is not for everybody. It really, truly is not for everybody. But what I'm about to share with you is for the parents who have decided that homeschooling really is for them and they really can do it. And there are going to be times when you will be overwhelmed and you will think you can't do it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not for you. Does this make sense? So, okay, you're at that point where homeschooling is for you. You understand the laws. Go to hslda.org and you can find your state's laws. They will have a copy. You can download it and you can read all the guidelines. And so you know what you need to do. Do not go to your school district and ask for help. Get to know your school district first to know if they are homeschool friendly. Some of them are, some of them are not. I live in Pennsylvania and I know which the school district I live in is homeschool friendly, but the school district where I work is not. So don't trust your school district. Sorry, guys, not sorry. Okay. Teaching styles. So then the next thing you want to look at is teaching styles, or the approach to teaching. How are you going to approach teaching your child? There are so many different ways, but there's a few that I have been reviewing over the last year with my podcast, Foreign Toe Podcast. So here, Chris, is where you can put up episode 17. If you go back and look at my episode 17, I had a conversation with Molly from The Modern Homeschooler. She has her own podcast and YouTube channel, which I would highly recommend. Go look up her YouTube channel, The Modern Homeschooler. She uses an approach called the classical approach, specifically with a curriculum called Classical Conversations. So this is the first style I'm going to talk about here. Its tenets are very Christian. So if you are a Christian, you may love this. If you are more of a secular homeschooler, which there is a movement of secular homeschoolers, homeschooling is not just for Christians. If you're a secular homeschooler, do not consider this as an option. But the Christian homeschoolers tend to really love this. It's very structured. It has a lot of it tends to be a little bit more on the academic side, like very structured academically. So it involves a lot of memorizing, and it has a cyclical learning style. So it builds in 3-year cycles. So they start in kindergarten, and you learn a cycle. It's between history and literature, and they add all the things. You have to supplement math with a different curriculum, but for all things history, geography, I believe science too, I think. But they start with memorizing things for 3 years. They memorize concepts, when they're young, it's just words. And then they build on that. 3 years later, they start and they go back to where the topics they were studying in kindergarten. So let's say they were learning about Greece. They go ancient Greece, they were learning about in kindergarten. By 3rd grade, they're going back and learning about ancient Greece again, and they're recalling what they learned in kindergarten and doing it again. And they go through this 3-year cycle, and it goes through high school. So they end up doing the cycle 3 times in the course of their 12 years of school. Molly explains it much better than I do. So go check out episode 17 of the Foreign Toe Podcast. You can hear a conversation with her, and you can look up her YouTube channel. She has a 3-part series on classical conversations, which has been which is really great. That it will take some time to work through, but she knows what she's talking about. So go check that out if that sounds like something you want. The next teaching style is the Charlotte Mason approach. And Charlotte Mason, I did an interview with Sonia Schaefer from Simply Charlotte Mason, which is a curriculum company, and it is episode 16. Episode 16 was with Sonia Schaefer from Simply Charlotte Mason. And this style was developed by a lady named Charlotte Mason back in the 1800s. And it was her reaction towards the educating of the time in England. And her tenets for learning were to acknowledge that children aren't just things, they're tiny humans. And because they're tiny humans, they can absorb a lot. She was sort of one of the people who really established that children are sponges. She didn't use that term, but that was kind of her deal. The Charlotte Mason approach uses teaching from story and the use of outdoor study and the idea of living books. So what's a living book? A living book is not a textbook. So think well-written biographies or autobiographies, or even storybooks that are historical fiction, some that can be historical fiction, or you can even have picture books that are written in a very engaging way that talk about historical, scientific, or even geographical events. So that they use those to teach rather than textbooks. So for the Charlotte Mason approach, there is a great book, if you want to know more about that, called For the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer Macaulay that I read. It's a fairly short read, but it has so much information about the Charlotte Mason approach. If you are curious about that approach at all, go look up that book, For the Children's Sake. Curriculum, well, yeah, we'll get into curriculum later. Okay. You can also look up episode 16. Okay. Another approach to homeschooling is called the Waldorf Method. I did an interview with Jean Miller from Waldorf Inspired Learning. It was episode 18. Episode 18 was with Jean Miller of Waldorf Inspired Learning. This one is, from my study of it, it's the more secular approach to homeschooling. Not a lot of Christians go this route because they use all stories. So they use stories of Greek mythology. They use stories of Norse mythology. They use just fairy tales and stories from around the world to teach, not just exclusively Christian stories or exclusively white stories, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's the main difference as far as like story goes that I've noticed. They also use a block scheduling. It's a little bit like the classical conversations rotating schedule. However, it's much gentler. They have a gentle learning style. They use nature study. They use study of the arts. They have a very specific way that they encourage people to use art study pictures, where you're looking at a picture and you're discussing what you see, which actually Charlotte Mason does as well. But Waldorf is very heavy in the use of arts for learning. They have block scheduling. Block scheduling is where you take one topic and you study that for a month or a week, and that's what you study. When I had my interview with Jean, she was explaining that there are a few things like math and sometimes spelling or reading where you're doing that every single day, but for the most part it'll be like, for example, the month of June, we're going to learn about history, and we have this specific topic in history. We're going to learn about this, and then the light bulb came back on. And then the next month you pause on history and you go to science. And this month we are learning about birds, and that's what your study is. And you only work for a few hours at a time, maybe not even in hours, maybe just an hour. So yeah, I'm running out of time, people. Question from Omar: how do I not raise weird kids in homeschooling? I think that's the parents. I think if your parents are weird, your kids will be weird. So you're welcome. You're going to have weird kids, babe. Sorry. Unschooling is another one. If you look up, now you don't have to add the links here, Chris, but in unschooling is the new craze. You need to check out episodes 20, 21, 22, and 23. I interviewed 4 different unschooling mothers. This is child-led. It's very gentle. It's what the subsidy schools have been experimenting with for several years now. And there are, oh, shoot, I forgot the books. If you want to know more about unschooling, you can look up The Big Book of Unschooling by Sandra Dodd and Dumbing Us Down by John Taylor Gatto, or listening to my episodes on unschooling. It is fascinatingly weird to me because I am this last version, which is the Eclectic Homeschooler. The unschooling method basically lets your child decide what they're going to learn. There's not really a lot of use of books. You don't do textbooks. You just, what's your kid interested in? Oh, writing. Okay, well, let's see. What do we have around the house that teaches you how to write? Well, most of them are using YouTube. There are some unschoolers that are using actual books in libraries. But yeah, it's really different. It's very different. I encourage you to watch, go listen to my episodes. And then, oh, shoot. I listened to another podcast too. I was just remembering that Amanda Martin actually sent me a link to one of her exercise gurus who was talking about unschooling, and his take was incredible. It made me want to unschool, but I'm a little bit more on the classical side. I'm an eclectic homeschooler, which you can hear most of my episodes in talk about eclectic homeschooling. But I also did do an interview with Joyfully Homeschooling, which is another podcast, Joyfully Homeschooling. The host is Misty Bailey. Want to check out episode 19. She's another eclectic homeschooler. And we talked about her approach using eclectic homeschooling. Eclectic homeschooling is a use of various methods to teach your children. So you can check out Misty Bailey on Joyfully Homeschooling. That's her whole podcast is eclectic homeschooling. I also have my 2 episodes with Heather. I think it's episode 23 and 24. I can't remember now. I spoke with a lady named Heather who is to sow a seed, _sow_seed on Instagram. And she has, she's raised several kids who are now in college as homeschool kids. And she is currently raising children as homeschoolers, and they are all working with the eclectic homeschool approach. So my definition of eclectic homeschooling is looking at your children, seeing that they learn differently, and teaching to their learning style. So I personally, that's what I love about it, is that it's so versatile to how people approach their kids. Okay. I have 3 minutes left. I have 4 pages left. So real quick points. Point number 1, the next thing after you decide what style you want to go for is looking up curriculum and books. I will post a blog post about this because literally have a page of curriculum suggestions for each style that I mentioned. Reach out to me if you need help. Okay. Resources. That's the next point. Homeschooling is more than curriculum. It's resources and it's tribe. Resources, you're going to want to look at what you have available. Do you have a personal library? Do you have a public library? Even now with COVID, public libraries have their online libraries available. So check that out. Does your library offer an online library catalog? Do you have local museums? You don't have to live in a big city to have local museums available. I live in the middle of Amish country, and I have a collection of local museums and zoos even, and science centers that are small, locally owned, but are available for us if we want to go check them out. The internet is huge. It's a huge resource. There is so much. Yes, there is so much trash, but there is so many things you can use with it. Tech options. What are your tech options? What do you have available? So this is the last link here, Chris. If you look up episode 27, I had an interview with Monica Burns from Class Tech Tips. And she is a wealth of knowledge and resources for teaching your children using technology. It is something we need to do because we live in the technology age. And so she had a whole bunch of suggestions. I am very new to this, so the technology side of things. So I don't have any suggestions for you there, but go listen to episode 27 with Monica Burns and you'll get a starting point at least. Resources for moms. Moms, you need resources too. You have your resources for your kids. What are your resources? Now, YouTube is a great place for you and your kids to find encouragement. Instagram, believe it or not, go follow #homeschool. I'm not even kidding. Or even there's a new hashtag going around this month for homeschoolers called Here is Our Homeschool. #Here is Our Homeschool on Instagram. You'll want to look at that one. It's giving you a really good idea of how diverse homeschoolers really are. Another great place for moms to find bits and pieces to help with their homeschooling is teacherspayteachers.com, which is really designed for public schoolers, but homeschoolers can find a lot of resources on there. I found a lot of fun little projects and even printables just to do with my children. And fun fact, I just put my homeschool planner up on Teachers Pay Teachers. So if you need help planning your homeschool, you can go buy my planner. It's on Teachers Pay Teachers. Pinterest is another one. I get a lot of ideas from teaching things on Pinterest. Just saying. All right. All right. I'm taking 5 more minutes and I don't even care. Because I'm supposed to be done now. I'm supposed to be done now. I'm going to take 5 more minutes. Okay. So, socialization and building your tribe. I am going to get on my soapbox here. My husband is so concerned about our children being weird, but I am, he married me and I was homeschooled. So I don't know what that says about him. Oh, here's the thing. The whole idea of socialization drives me absolutely nuts. Okay. Because what is it that we're actually afraid of? Is it that we're really just afraid that our children are going to be weird? And what do you mean when you say socialize your kids? What I have having been homeschooled and going in post homeschool to being an adult, I knew that I was different, but the only real difference that I saw that may be considered bad was that I didn't get pop references. And if that's the only thing that I really missed out on, I'm okay with it. At this point in America, at least, because homeschooling has been around forever and it really started a renaissance period in the 80s and 90s, you're going to find that quite a few adults now at this point have been homeschooled and are now raising their own families. Put a post up on Facebook. Ask, hey, are any of you former homeschoolers? And go from there. What? Walk away.
Lots of weird homeschool kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just something people make up.
Okay.
Omar is just speaking from experience, you know.
I know. So here's my thing. I know we tend to be weird, but I think I personally think if you as a parent are conscious of think through what it is that people think is weird. It's that we have a hard time relating to our peers. And if that really is the only thing, or maybe we have odd interests, who doesn't? I mean, honestly, like I know public schoolers who have the weirdest interests. And I was quote unquote normal because my interests were normal or similar to those of my public school friends. What are you trying to raise? Are you trying to raise a child who is a well-adjusted adult, a well-rounded adult? You have to think through these things. And then to figure out how to do that, what I found is that only homeschooling, oh my gosh, he really threw me off. As a homeschooler, I had experience dealing with people of different ages. I wasn't just stuck with my peers. I wasn't just learning to communicate in pop culture ways or whatever with just people who are my age. As a result, I have a lot of friends who are 10 years younger and 10 years older. And I have always been that way. And in my opinion, as an adult, that's helped me more. And I'm not saying that people who weren't homeschooled don't get there. But when I was in college, when I was a college age student, I was in YWAM and my best buddy, I guess you could say, I don't know if we were best friends, but my best buddy was Sue Molnar, who was 32 and I was 18. And I was okay with that. And she was okay with that. My peers were like, "Why are you hanging out with Sue all the time?" I'm like, "'Cause she's cool." um, which didn't always make sense to people, but there was a maturity level. There is a maturity level that can happen with people like that. When you're engrossed in other ages, when you're learning how to communicate with people who are other ages. And I think in the end, it works out. It all ends up working out. It all ends up um, evening out. Like I was talking with one guy one time. He said he could always tell who the homeschoolers were who were out of the house for the first time. But by the time they had been out of the house for 5 years or less, you can't tell the difference. And it's if you're worried about the social cues, if you're worried about the pop culture, then teach that at home. Why not? Why can't that be something you teach at home? Now, Omar really threw me off. I'm having a hard time with this one. Let me see here. Okay. A couple things about building your tribe. So you don't have to isolate yourself unless you're in the middle of a pandemic. There are so many resources out there available to you there that are extracurricular. I live in the middle of Amish country, and here's what's available to me as a parent, not even just a homeschooler, but as a parent. I have available to me art classes at local art studios, more than one. There's more than one that offer art classes. There are local music studios that offer music classes. And there's even a local studio in a town near me that's, I guess, competitive of me or whatever, that has band classes. So you can join a band and have like a rock band. And this guy teaches them how to do that. Okay. This is available in my Amish country. Okay. So if you don't live in Amish country, you probably have more resources. There are drama clubs. There are local theaters, community theaters, who put on community plays that your kids could get involved in if you wanted to do theater. There are lots of gyms, YMCAs that offer gyms and YMCAs both that offer classes to kids. And we have classes in taekwondo, karate, soccer, t-ball, basketball, gymnastics, dance. There's an ice rink that does ice skating and ice hockey. There is horse riding. There's a horse riding ranch that kids can learn how to care for and ride horses. And then there's 4-H too. Again, I live in Amish country. There's 4-H that anybody could get involved with. And these are all things in which extracurriculars where your families can just go and do and go and be, and you're getting exposed to other kids. You're getting experience being around other people and doing other things. Now, again, none of this is happening with the pandemic. So, whatever, we have to wait till that's all over. And maybe these things will come back. But what I'm saying is the resources that are out there, the things to do with your children outside of school time is available to everybody, not just public schoolers. And so you can be involved in all of those things. You can go to do all of those things. I know a couple of families who homeschool their kids because their kids are so involved in the gymnastics that their kids are like, they have to be homeschooled because they're at the gym doing gymnastics so much. So there's that if you want it. Finding your tribe of people that homeschool similar to you or that can be an encouragement to you it's just like anything. You just have to try it out. It really has helped me to find the homeschool moms that homeschool the way I do and to hang out with them. And we get together and we love each other, and our kids get together and they love each other. But it has been a process. I've been homeschooling in our area for 5 years, and it has taken about that long to find the families that I just click with and gel with. And I know that seems like it really is a long time and it can be hard, but when you have 4 kids that have different personalities and you have your own personality, trying to find that family that works with you does just take time. So finding the like-minded moms and families can come from taking your kids to the extracurriculars. I've met several people from the art classes. I've met people through the music classes, and several of them have introduced me to moms through the library. Our local libraries do lots of things. Thank you, Dave. Yes, that's awesome. Dave says that to own your own weirdness. Yes, thank you. I am, yeah. Thank you. I have been doing that a little bit more the last year or so. It's been great. Finding your own tribe and it can be hit and miss. Another thing that I do is I actually schedule socialization time. This sounds weird, but I actually include it as part of our homeschool curriculum. So every Friday, pre-pandemic, I would look at our schedule and make sure I didn't have anything podcast related to do. And if I didn't, I would try and invite somebody over for a play date or agree to meet somebody at a park for a play date. And I call them play dates. And I have been laughed at for this. I've been told, well, we don't do play dates anymore. But, whatever. Those are the people that you don't want to hang out with. So it's worked out really well. And my kids miss this. Like my kids I have really missed play dates because it's a play date as much for me as it is for them. Mom's sitting down, drinking our coffee, talking shop. And I already have moms who have been writing to me saying, as soon as this pandemic's over, we're getting together because I can't handle not see you guys anymore. So I'm looking forward to post-pandemic play dates because it is a great way to get your socialization in for the week and blow off some steam as a homeschool mom too. If you're a Christian, church is a great place to find homeschool moms. I am not, well, I don't know how Christian I am anymore, but I do not attend church anymore. So I do not find fellowship there, but I know a lot of homeschool families who do. So anybody have any real questions?
You have several people saying that you're doing great and that you are so knowledgeable, but not a whole lot of questions.
Okay. So I'm going to leave it with this then. I clearly have a lot to say. I am a third generation homeschooler. My grandma did this with my mom when they lived in Africa, and my mom has homeschooled me from 2nd grade through 12th grade in Pennsylvania, which is where I am now homeschooling my kids, and so I have the advantage of being in the same state, so I don't have to relearn stuff. There are people like me out there who want to help you, who want to encourage you, and please reach out to us. We love to talk shop. I am not the only one who likes to talk shop. Trust me on this one. Get homeschool moms together and we will talk shop and we will talk your ear off clearly for hours. So find me at Foreign Toe Podcast on your favorite podcast feed. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Faded Gray Podcast. I'm on Twitter at Faded Gray Pod. My website is foreigntoepodcast.com. And I love you all. Talk to you later.
Well, hold on. Before you go off live, Stephanie Bransom. Okay. Stephanie Bransom says that you are very knowledgeable and that she's enjoyed your podcast as a Montessori mom. And now she's going to binge listen to everything to come up with a plan for themselves. So, and David Lunsford also says that he's interested. David Lunsford also says he's interested in wondering how long this pandemic will go on and wants to learn about his options. So he will also be checking out Foreign Toe Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That's fantastic. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, reach out to me personally, and I will see you on the other side. I can't stop the stream.
Right there on Facebook.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I kept doing that.
Stick around, everyone, for an episode of Mental coming up in 15 minutes here at the Fade to Gray Network.